I'm hitting it. You're good. Good to go. And I can move around the room, or I have to stay right here?
No, you can move.
Move. Perfect. Okay, guys, first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Dexter Matlock. This was a whole teachers by teachers thing. Well, I got a bad news for you. I am not a teacher. I'm actually a high school principal. I went to the dark side a few years ago. Everybody asks me all the time, do you regret it? And I say every day. But that's where I'm at right now, and it works out. It's best for my family at this point in time. But I will not stand up here and blow a bunch of smoke and tell you guys that I am the best at cattle or do anything of that nature. I am far from that, all right? I just I've had to manage a couple chapters, and with those chapters came tons of numbers, and so that's kind of what I've done. I'm by far not the best. I am by far not anything of that nature. I've just got some things that I've learned throughout many dogfights in order to try to make things work and be a little bit better off. And so, first off, as in, I'm not sure what your role in the cattle deal is going to be. It's about like any other the species that there's so much outside sources in that there's so many outside sources that you're having to deal with and having to accommodate. And so I'm going to kind of talk on both sides of that. Also, if you have a question, if I'm rambling way too much or something, or I'm not answering a certain question, just ask in the middle of it. We'll be able to, I've got ADHD enough that I can bounce all over the place and still not get to the point. So it'll be great. And so first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is kind of like the very first aspect is buying cattle, all right? And so student comes to you, you've never shown cattle before, or you go to a chapter, you're at this place and they've shown cattle before, but they want your help in doing that. There's several different kind of ways to go about that. All right, there's people all the way across the state that raise cattle, but the number one thing that I always looked for, yes, I wanted to find the great cattle, but I wanted to find usually when you buy a calf, especially from like, let's say a trader or something along those lines, I wanted to buy a calf that their help is going to be good around my students, all right? And so like that's something, one of the biggest pet peeves of mine, and I've thrown more guys out of my stalls than I can shake a stick out, and almost bad altercations because of it, because I won't tolerate it. I won't tolerate the way a lot of those young people act, and if I've got a 9-year-old kid that's really nervous about walking his calf down to the ring, and I've got a group of fitters that come in, dive in on this calf, and I've got an F-bomb thrown every 30 seconds as they're drinking a beer, I'm out. And so that's something that I would research ahead of time and, kind of know. I mean, yes, they may have the best calf out there, and if that's the way you want to go, and if winning's the only thing, then go for it. But that's not what I can do. That's not how I can do about it, because we're kind of getting past, I think, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but sometimes the warrior livestock industry is pushing us past what we're actually supposed to be doing, and making sure educating students is kind of that number one thing. And so when you're going to buy livestock, make sure you're going to somebody that is, if they are going to be taking care of that calf throughout the time, make sure you kind of have that in not necessarily in writing, but know, hey, send me a text message. How does this actually work? All right, am I going to be taking them to you in order to trim hooves? Am I taking them to you in order to get clipped for the county fair, or what? How's this going to work? Or is it I'm buying this calf and then I'm on my own for that aspect? And so make sure that you guys know that ahead of time. Also, make sure you know if they're going to charge you extra when you go to do those things. And so that's, all of a sudden I pay, $4,500 for a show steer, and then every time I take them down there, it's $100 to trim feet and $250 to clip, then plus another $250 at OIE. Well, you just added at least $1,500 to that student's project that they were not planning on. And so I always kind of tried to make sure that I had all of that stuff ironed out up front, or that meant that I needed to make sure that I was going to find people in order to take care of that on my own. And so there's that. My next little bit of advice on buying cattle is the great big good bloomy one. He's going to be too expensive for anybody in here, so let's not find that one. Look for feet and legs. Okay, right off the bat, make sure they're good off their feet and legs, and you can work in. You can see muscle structure, you can see hip structure, that sort of thing. But the biggest thing that we cannot fix, you cannot control, no matter how good the guy on the grinder is of a foot, you cannot fix structure. So if they're ill-structured when they're little, when you're buying them, they're not going to get any better. So that's kind of always my big thing. In the cattle deal right now, we're going through this trend, and I absolutely hate it. I absolutely despise it. We're going through these geek-fronted, everything has to be just super clean neck, and 1 out of every 50 is going to actually be a good-bodied one with a big, thick neck, all right? And so our big extended front end. And that deal is eventually going to pass, but I would not, for the ag teacher budget that you guys are going to be operating in, don't make that be your first thing. Make a good functional animal that's going to stand a third or a fourth versus trying to find that one that's got just a choke neck, but it's going to be pencil gutted and awful off its legs. All right, that's just something. Now, the one that wins that thing, is it going to be that way? Sure, but again, 1 of 50 is going to turn out like that, and so that is a trend that has hit in the last couple years, and I don't see it being able to sustain that away. And so I always try to start with the ground up. Obviously, I don't want them huge, thick fronted, but I would start from the ground up, make sure they're good muscle, good structured, and at least have that greenness to them, but they're going to be able to go. And then a lot of things can happen from that point with the right amount of feed and the right amount of aspects. Okay, but the biggest thing on buying cattle is making sure who you buying it from, reputable. They're going to do that. If it's a breeding piece, if it's we're buying a heifer, all right, you've got to know where that heifer came from. And if she is a registered heifer, God, there's been a lot of really, really bad situations, and I even got myself in a situation or two in my lifetime on buying them as registered, and then all of a sudden those papers just never show up. They're in the mail. God, they sent them a little bit ago. Before you leave, know exactly where that, because most of the time, if it's a trader, it did not originate there. All right, that calf did not originate there, so they're going to have to go and have it in writing somehow through a text message from the trader, something along those lines, that they are going to be here, and then who it came from, so that you also have another person to be able to track. I mean, I'm big on that, because I'm not saying that anybody in this world is dishonest, but if there was going to be one, it would sure affect you guys. And so make sure, and then to this FFA member who has no idea what's going on, you guys are now the bad guy because you guys didn't do your job. That's not true. You guys did everything you were supposed to do. You just got hosed in the backside. And so covering your butt is the biggest thing that I could always tell you on that regard. And so the more documentation that you can have, the more every aspect that you can have, the better on that. Okay? And so I could go into the whole genetics and trying to find a great, trying to make sure which is great and all the above. You guys will do your research or find that out. But I'd also, when you find that person that you're going to buy from, whether it's a farmer down the road, whatever, I'm big on what, I always want to see the cow. If I need to call that trader, I'd like to see what the cow looks like. That's just something I do. I don't know why. It's just, I'm big on the bottom side of genetics, because I think, my wife really carried the load on my kids, so I figured that would be kind of the same way there. But for sure on when you're buying, and having those resources of people that's going to come in and help. And I know there's great groups out there, but just make sure that they are going to be good and have a positive representation for you and your chapter around your students, because that's something that I won't stand for, and I'll never tell you who I've thrown out of my stall, but it was not a good situation, but I didn't need that. I didn't. My students don't need that, and neither do yours. And so we're constantly trying to have a positive. If one of your parents goes out and purchases from these, and does all that, make sure that you. Which we're going to get into this in a second, but yes, they may have done all that, but that's still your stall. That's still you are still in charge of that. Okay? If there's something that, quite frankly, a picture's taken with somebody doing that right there in your stall, is your job at risk? As a principal, absolutely. Absolutely. Am I going to try to fight for you because I was an ag teacher at one point in time? Absolutely. But is your job at risk if that happens right there? Sure is. And so making sure the groups that you have come in to help are reputable and are going to, that care about that stuff is something that is incredibly important to me on that front. So let's get into like just checking cattle checks, project checks. All right. One thing that I hear all of the time is that, well, my ag teacher doesn't know anything about, I've heard it forever since I've been teaching ag. Well, my ag teacher doesn't know anything. They don't even come out anymore. I don't believe that a bit. But, what are some things that you're looking for when you guys do make your project checks? All right. Something that I was always a stress box about, and which one person in here could tell you I was about: clean water, clean stalls. God, there's nothing more that makes me furious than nasty water or nasty stall where they're at. Furious, all right? Because all that is being lazy, and I can't stand that either. All right, and so clean water, clean stalls. First off, all of you guys know livestock perform better on clean water no matter what. I don't care what additive you put in there. I don't care what any of that. There's tons of new stuff out there that even since I've been out of the game, they have. But I'm just telling you, clean water, clean stalls. It's a clean environment. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be standing in that. You don't want to be with that all the time either. So let's make that happen. Then, everybody's like, we got to have a cool room in order to grow hair. That's not true either. All right, they have to have a cool aspect. We have to have fans. But believe it or not, more hair is grown with a rice root brush and clean hide than anything. Okay, there is, a good washing routine and a good rinsing routine and all the above. And there's so many products out there, and there's so many great things out there that you can use. I'm not going to promote any separate product because I don't know anybody that's been able to try all of them and just run with it. But if cattle's hide is clean, if cattle's hide is clean and they're running with a rice root brush and a comb and actually working hair right and correct, man, that hair is going to grow. Would it grow better in a cool room? Well, obviously, but that's another, $20,000 your kids are going to have to invest, plus another $1,000 a month on electricity. So I don't think that's exactly feasible on all aspects. And so, but a lot can be done. A lot can be done. I'll just tell you 4 years ago, the Grand Steer at OYE never stepped foot in a cooler. Never stepped foot. Why? Because I saw him once a week. Never stepped foot in a cooler. So it can be done. It can happen on that front. But the biggest thing on a student showing cattle, and the biggest thing that a student can learn, is how to work hair and work hair correctly. All right, that's been the biggest thing coming up, growing up in livestock, growing up in the cattle world. That was the biggest thing that I had to learn, and I had to, in order to perform, was to learn how to work hair. And I can't sit here and have a workshop in a classroom and teach you guys that, but there are so many resources on Facebook, there are so many resources out there, period, that can teach them how to do that. But it goes right back to whether they're going to put in the work to do it or not. All right? Now, you can always lead them to water, can't make them drink. All right? And so, but giving them those resources, giving them those aspects on that in order to teach them. There's tons of camps through the summer that they can go to. Haul them to them. Take them to them. All right? They can only get better because of it. They can only get better because of it. So, but that is, making sure that we've got a clean facility as well as their hide and their hair is clean and worked right. Then that's on them. All right, the feeding aspects are going to kind of come from a collection of all of you, but the things that are on them are making sure they have clean stalls, clean water, and making sure that they are actually putting in the time and the elbow grease in order to make sure that hair is there and ready to go. Yes.
Could you give a very general example of like a weekly hair routine?
Okay, so. All right, so for example, I've got a pair of buddies that just came into Chattanooga. They are moving there eventually, but they just moved into a barn right there. They've got a heifer that's going to Limousine Junior Nationals. They've got a heifer that's going to Angus Junior Nationals. And so after they dropped them off, they had to go back for a week to get another load of stuff. So who got to take care of them? I did. All right. So this is what I'll just tell you what I do, what I've been doing, what I did for them that week, and this is what they do. The worst thing about summertime is it's hot. Okay, so right off the bat, 7 a.m., they come in, they've got 20 minutes to eat. That's it. If they don't get it done in 20 minutes, their pan's jerked from them. All right, I don't want them to have an all-out buffet, because that means when I need them to eat, they're not going to, because they're going to have the idea process that they're going to be able to eat all day. All right, look like me. It's not a good thing. So I want them to be able to scarf that plate down and scarf that pan down as fast as they possibly can. I would immediately go right into, take them right to the wash rack. Okay. What I do is I only wash once a week, as in wash, soap, all of the above. The rest of them, it's a rinse and a dip. Okay. I rinse that morning, or I'd wash. Let's say it's Monday. I wash Monday morning. Put them under fans, run the brush and comb dry. Then kick them loose. My ideal is closer to the show, but I think cattle need to stand a lot, because if you think about it, when a calf goes to get ready to go show, they get tied in. They get up, they get tied in a chute. They're in the chute for an hour. They're in the holding pen for 30 minutes. Let's say they get a nickel of a class. That's another 30 minutes. We're at 2 hours right now. Let's say, God, we're going to go back for that division. We're going to go back for the breed deal. We're up 3.5 hours right at that point in time. Okay, that's, I don't care what kind of showman you have. They're still going. If a calf's tired, it's not going to work. And so, what I did was I'd usually, from the second they got tied up, I'd leave them tied up until after lunch. All right, after lunch, let them down, let them go. All right. Right before I would eat supper, I would then go back out. I'd rinse again, do the exact same thing. I'd go eat supper, come back, let them down, give them 20 minutes to eat, kick them out at dark. So now that's summertime. I know that's not feasible for students. What I begged of students when it was time, because I've been at a small school no matter where I've been, and everybody that's at a small school knows that your good kid is going to be the basketball good kid, it's going to be the softball good kid. All good kids are going to go somewhere and do something, all right? And so what I always beg is 4 times a week. Give me 4 times. Give me the better of 50%, all right? Would I love more than that? Absolutely. But give me the betterment of 50%, at least one. Just give me that, all right? And I don't care if it's before school. That's what we did growing up. I washed before school. Okay, that's the only way that I was able to do it. And so I washed before school, and then, that allowed, and when I'd get home, I wouldn't have time. It would still be dark, so I'd let them stand for that point in time right before they got kicked out. But that was how I did that. So the biggest thing on that is trying to get them to just maximize. And 2 of those days can be the weekend. All right, and so that, we're so busy prioritize, figure it out, but you've invested you've invested more than I make in a month in a calf. Let's try to take care of it. And so, if they don't understand that, then that's great. But all of these things need to be discussed before they, start dragging a calf, anyways. And so, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to put in more work. That's one of the biggest things. And so, but that was what I would always do, is at least once a time, 1 wash, 3 rinses per week at the minimum. Obviously, ideally, I'd love for them to be done, all 7 days during school. It's not feasible. It's not practical. I know how busy students are. But another thing is, right after a show, like we get home from OIE, they need to be cows. Kick them out, especially if it's a heifer that's going to be rolling on. I would not let a calf enter back into a kid's barn. I don't care if they were planning on trying to go win the summer preview show, right? Which that's not going to happen. But anyways, I don't care if that's what they were wanting to do. They've got to get out and got to pull them off of everything. Let them just be cows, roam the traps, not come in at all. They're going to shuck a lot of that hair. Go ahead and get that off. And then you're able to do your summer, start to get into your summer routine. But I'm big on, if it's cold, if it's going to be colder outside than inside the barn, they need to stay out. Get them rinsed, kick them back out. that's just something, and believe it or not, Southwest Oklahoma for a few days in May, we had several days that it was a heck of a lot cooler outside than it was inside, which blew my mind, but it was all good. So, but rice root brush, the comb is going to be a student's best friend at all point in time. All right, they want to grow hair. There's tons of sheens, there's tons of things like that. There's all kinds of products out there. I'm not going to sit there and preach on any of those, on what I use or what I don't use on that stuff. But make sure, skin and hair is incredibly important on any livestock project, as I'm sure you guys know. It's incredibly important on cattle. Making sure they are dry is the last thing I'm going to tell you. All right. Yes, I rice root brush. We air dry them, right behind the fans, all the above. But I will run a blower over them for about 5 minutes to make sure, because your points that you're going to have trouble with right here, right in between those back legs. All right. You're going to get a fungus. You're going to get a dry rot type thing that's going to happen, and then all of a sudden we're ready to go to the county fair, and they have rubbed every aspect of hair from here to here, and it's real nice, real nice. You can't really cover that up a whole lot. And so make sure that your students know that they are dry right there in that chest capacity, right there in the middle of the, kids don't want to bend over, which is just, they don't want to get them dry. All right, so that's usually where a lot of Matlock butt chewings came from, and so is not getting them dry. I don't care if they work hair just halfway, as long as we're dry at the end, that's going to be good. And it's also awful on show morning, like when they go to pull in the chute and they're not dry. Like that's a real big bad deal. So just making sure they're dry when they're ready to be done on that. So next, let's talk a little bit nutrition side on, you're talking cattle checks, doing that sort of thing. Guys, everybody, you can pull 17 people up here, and everybody is going to have a different way of getting one fed. Okay, I buy cattle that are thicker. I buy cattle that have good feet and legs to them, but have the ability to be a little thicker, and have already got a little bit more throat because I can't afford the choke neck ones. All right, and so what I do is I don't feed a whole lot of fat at any point in aspect. I never do. All right. That's just something that I don't do. Now, maybe towards the end, the last 60 days, especially if I'm pushing a market steer, sure, I could do that. But I don't do a ton of that. I try to keep them consistent. If I'm pushing on a heifer, I'm pushing a ton of things that's going to make her belly drop, but it's not going to put any extra added fat on her. All right, I don't want to do that. And there are tons of additives out there. You could literally triple your students' feed cost by just scrolling through Facebook on cattle stuff. All right, it's asinine how crazy expensive some of this stuff is. Now, am I going to tell you that I use some of it? Sure, but what I've done in order to start using it is I've called somebody and they've said, look, this is something you can add here, here, and here. Like I've got a dealer down at home. We deal Purina and Sunglow. All right, and I've got a lot of great things from all of those, but that doesn't mean that I'm married to any of those products, but I've also got great resources around me that I'm able to call and say, all right, look, how much is Bitter 52? Oh, that's what I'm, okay, so we're feeding that twice a day. Oh, okay, very good. And so it just kind of depends on the family, depending on, if you have a family that's wanting to kind of run and gun a little bit, and, there's always different ways, different aspects in order to do that, but I always tried to not to push one too soon, not to push one, because you get one too fat too early, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle the entire time. And so I always want one to be able to grow naturally, and do all the above. You get one too fat, the frame size is going to shrink. They're not going to meet full maturity. I don't ever want to win a show until the end. I'd love to. Don't get me wrong, but I'm never feeding to win their third show. That's just not probable. Am I going to feed a little harder that last 15 to 20 days to make them have a little bit more belly? Sure. But I'm never going to have one dialed in 100% right to try to go win the Fall County. It's just me. I can't can't do it unless that's that calf's last show and that's what they want to do. And so I just can't ever, I never was able to do that, and that was never good enough to do that. Plus, I didn't really want to have to have all the extra additives to take it off and then pull it back on. And so on nutrition side, guys, study. There's every feed company out there has things that say what they do and do it. Those feed representatives or salesmen. All right, of course, they're going to sell you their product, but they're also going to tell you why you should use their product. Read between the lines. You guys aren't dumb. Read between the lines and figure out exactly what you need and how to do it. Plus, there's not many guys out there that are successful that won't tell you something. Okay, I mean, if I think I'm going off of just the top of my head, last few winters Oklahoma Youth Expo, you could go to them and say, hey, look, what do you feed to get a body depth? Are they going to give you everything? No, but they're sure going to tell you and give you a heads up on kind of what you can and can't do. There's got to be people around your area that are also successful and have done it. Especially an ag teacher that's wanting to try to learn, wanting to try to help. Now, if a cocky parent goes up and does that, probably not going to go well, all right? Because, well, they don't like dealing with them just as much as you don't like dealing with them. So, but there's tons of people out there that's going to be willing to help and willing to do. A guy down by me, I've got a guy by the name of Clinton Bailey that's worked at Coyote Hills Ranch for 30 plus years. He's my go-to guy on all things. I don't know, it's just I've learned more from him. I think he's forgotten more than I'll ever know. And then I've got Colby Collins right there in my next door. And so I've got two of the best that I'm able to just run ideas by and talk through. But on the nutrition side of things, obviously you can tell when somebody is when a calf is going backwards, but that is the big thing on making sure that you are checking in on those animals and are doing those project checks, because that's something that is incredibly important on that front, to make sure that you can see if an animal is going negative or positive on that. So, yes.
Can you talk about like parasites and deworming and some things like that?
Absolutely. And so I'm a huge aspect of. They've got to be wormed once a month, and we got to go a 3 rotation. And so I don't care which 3 rotation that you do. Whether you do a pour-on Ivermectin 1, then you follow up with a Safeguard, and then a third. I don't care, Sidectin, whatever. It doesn't, I'm not picky on those, but I do 3 different types. And if I have one that still is not putting on weight, I'm going to bust that up to every 15 days, and I'm going to push it a little harder. And so on that front, if I've got something that just cannot gain weight, all right, I'm going to up that game just a little bit on that front. But that's one of their management things that depending on how active and how involved that you want to be with that project, if you're advising or if you're helping do, whatever. There's all there to each their own. But once a month, those guys need to be done. But that pour aspect, be careful when you have them pour on an Ivermectin or something along those lines with a pour on. Leave it on too long, it's going to burn, and you're literally going to have a calf that has a zigzag down her top, and that's going to be on. Well, you're always going to get blamed, so it doesn't, that. But that's something that you're going to have to do on that. I also did a big thing when I come home from a stock show, which my family's hated at first, but began to finally understand and finally loved. I would mix up I've got a mix of Sidectin, Prolate, and then I'll think of the other one in a second. But I had a mix up, and as soon as you got home, I'd fog them with all of it. All right, they'll get a bottle fogger, and I'd fog all of them. Kill anything that they could have picked up at that show. I'm not going to say it's going to kill the ringworm, but most other things that they could have, lice, any type of bug, any type of fungus, most like that, that's topical, that would at least help on that. And so we would get home, I don't care what time it is, we'd fog them, kick them out, and then wash them the first thing the next morning. And so that's just something that we kind of got into doing, and had pretty good luck with that on that front. And so, on the, yes, ma'am.
Fire security is really big with swine things, like just moving from barns. Is that also the same thing with cattle, like watching where you're going, who you're following, that kind of stuff?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I mean, you can't choose where you stall. You can't choose where. I mean, and so I mean, it is what it is on that front. I mean, I would stay on. If all of a sudden they get home from somewhere and they're not. You can't quarantine cattle like you do a hog on, or as easy. And so now, if I've got a calf that's sick in a stall, do I know that the rest of the calves are going to be sick? Yeah, absolutely, I do. And so most of the time, when I doctor that first one, I give a shot to the rest as well. And so go through there. Your medicine bill goes up, but you potentially aren't losing one. All right, and so I am a little old school on the fact of the old ag teacher ways, where I had a medicine bag and I had that, and I gave shots and did all the above on that. If you don't feel comfortable with that, don't do it. Okay, make them call a vet. That's just fine as well. Just understand, on the other side of that, what could happen. But then again, give the wrong shot, or something happened, and they still die, and they have to pay you for the $300 of Draxxin that they just had to buy from you, and it still died. They're not going to be very happy with you anyways. So just depends on what you want to do on that front. But I would always, the second I got home from something, I would watch them pretty hard, make sure that they're not going to clean up their feed that next morning. But by that next night, if they're not eating right, something's off. We need to do something.
Okay, so a scenario that some will have to deal with and some won't within their teaching career. Having to deal with jocks and families that they don't listen to anything you say, they do everything that they're told to do. How do you handle that situation? On visits, on different things like that, no matter what you say, it's not taken into consideration.
What I always thought about that is one less, like, I'm not a pride guy by any means, and I know there's a lot better people out there than I am, all right? As long as I thought that things were on the up and up, and I thought things were positive, I don't care. I'm going to be a cheerleader, and I'm going to be the best cheerleader ever. I'm going to stand over there with a paper towel, all right? That thing takes a crap, I'm going to wipe, all right? That's what I'm going to do. That's my job, and that's going to happen right there. But, I mean, quite frankly, going out, because what happens, and this is all species, what happens, you get a jock or somebody, and this kid starts to be successful, heads start getting big. Well, my ag teacher doesn't ever even come out to see me. That's coming from a kid, all right? They don't understand that, well, we've got such and such coming out and telling us how to feed, what to feed, how to do it, when to do it. They don't, I mean, yes, they know that that's happening, but they also know that you've been at such and such's house once a week, and so that's, I just always became their biggest cheerleader and said, whatever you need, I'm here. If not, I'm going to stay back, stay away. Again, as long as things are on the up and up, and as long as they can be around the rest of my group, all right? And so we're going to get into that in a second, but like that's as long as there wasn't something along those lines that was causing trouble, like that would be the big thing.
I can agree with you on the whole crew thing on who's working on what. I've been through that and that kind of thing. Make sure your kids are around a positive environment. They know what's going on. They see it. Make sure.
So, all right, showtime. All right, getting ready to go. Worst thing that could happen, it's happened a lot with me, is forgetting something, and then all of a sudden your chapter then has to spend a large amount of money at the show in order to get things set up and done. All right, now I'll tell you that one of you's going to know a lot about this. My first job to my second job. My first job, everybody had their own stuff. All right, everybody had their own stuff. They all went in there. They all kind of piled in, and there was always someone that was going to be mad. All right, because they all had it done well before I could even start to dictate that. You're going to be the bad guy, no matter what. But at least you're the bad guy that all your kids are getting, all right? It took me a long time to figure that out. And so when I left my first place and went to the second place, that wasn't an option. You don't get to build your own stalls. I build your stalls. All right? Now, I'm not saying that you guys have to do that, but I'm saying you go ahead of time and designate. I don't care how early that you have to do that. You go and you designate where they go. Because one thing that they're always going to do, and you're always going to get pushback, is that, you can't tell me how to do this. I'm going to da-da-da-da. Well, actually, believe it or not, you do have to have me, or there is that Comanche County 4-H group that is right over there that you can sure go through. All right? But quite frankly, entries and all the above, that and stalling is going to get a ton of people in a ton of trouble on that front. But that causes more drama, more conflict over her chute is on, it is over. No, just, and so like what I started doing was I would have a nice big bed, and I'd make sure it looked awesome. That was always my goal, was to make sure that Chattanooga Stalls was looked one of the absolute best. All right. So then my parents were like, okay, well maybe. All right, and then I'd have, look, this is where we're going to have 3 chutes. We don't have anything more than 3 or 4, however I needed to do that. But we don't need 7 chutes, okay? And we also don't need all of your feed and your hay and your crock pots in here at the same time, all right? We don't need all of that, okay? So bring enough for you to be able to feed that time, all right? The rest can be in the trailer, all right? So that everybody didn't have to fight over space and all the above, and everybody felt that they were taken care of, blah, 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 blah. That. Also transparency. I know that you have to, on the extras and doing all the above. By the way, I'm old enough to know that I used to enter a bunch of commercials, and that got me right up there, and it actually took me, I think, 2 years to figure out, oh my gosh, those aren't counting anymore. I paid for a bunch of extra commercials, and that didn't work out. But, and then just being completely honest with everybody, I would not allow a bunch of people to come in and, try to enter extras for themselves, because, that's up to you. You do whatever you want, but that means all of a sudden we have the Taj Mahal right here where they have 2 head for 16 feet. And then I've got 4 head and 16 feet. It just causes a lot of animosity on that front. And so, you guys do kind of control that how you want. I just never did. But I also always wanted to make my stall look the absolute best. I always wanted it to be deep, okay? And I would have people gripe and complain all the time. Oh my gosh, we're paying $100 per calf on this for OIE. I'm like, yeah, but why are you wearing tennis shoes right now? What do you mean? Why are you wearing tennis shoes right now? Because my feet hurt, all this concrete. Imagine what your 1,300-pound steer feels like too. All right, so I never wanted to bed one down shallow. I never wanted to do anything. I wanted to have a good, firm bed. Yes?
So on extra entries, did you do like everyone pays so much for the whole chapter?
And so that's what I tried to do. But the problem is, you have to have extra registrations. You have to do, and it's just really hard right now. And so I tried to help my ag teacher, and it's a lot harder now than it was when I was doing it. Because again, we could just do commercials and roll. It was awesome. They got smart. So make sure you get the stall set up. I like to have that done before the cattle get there. Cattle aren't standing. Cattle aren't heat. You can tell your people, like, look, this is what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that your cattle. I'll even go back and pick up cattle after we get beds made. Whatever to make it easier on you. Blah 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 blah. Really, it's so that their cattle aren't standing in the absolute heat on concrete, dying, and that just doesn't make any sense to me on that. And so, again, there's a ton of drama that can come with the stalling aspect. There's a ton of drama that can handle that. But no matter what, there's always going to be people upset. Get over it, all right? And so now, I do have one of the best things on, this is wash racks, all right? And I just got to tell you that wash racks for a cattleman is the absolute just gives me hives thinking about it, all right? And so a great individual named Matt Boyer, that's at Claremore, all right, puts out this every year before OIE, and I think it's the funniest thing. And I'm going to read it to you because, I think it's hilarious. It's that time of year again. Important reminder to all beef exhibitors heading to OIE when it comes to wash rack etiquette. All right, top 5 simple things to hopefully make wash rack anxiety a little less stressful. Think of arriving at the wash rack like going through airport security. Please arrive at the wash rack 2 hours minimum before desired time. If you exhibit a large breed, please adjust your time accordingly. Know that all crossbreds will be trying to wash at the same time. Remember, the early bird gets the worm, and my friends, so extremely early is always better. Please don't run up in a panic with an animal that's about to go in the ring and expect everyone to step aside so you can simply walk into the front of the line. These individuals are usually easy to spot. The animal will be extremely dirty, half broke, and the animal's hair will be going in all different directions. Mom or dad will be following close behind while yelling at the kid to hurry up and asking everyone nearby what the heck is going on here, then loudly point out that this is ridiculous. Don't be that person. Please do not bring your steer or heifer to the wash rack area before securing a wash rack spot first, especially if it's not well behaved. Standing in line for 2 hours as your animal bumps into and steps on other people's animals that are standing calmly will only make you stand out even more, and the anxiety level for everyone will rise. Simply secure your wash bay when it gets close and have a friend hold your spot as you go get your animal. They must do that before it's your turn in order for that wash stall, though. Time is precious. Once you have a wash stall, it is yours until you have finished all of your livestock, all right? There was an absolute, I was young at one point in time, and this is when my little sister was showing, and someone tried to physically remove her off of a wash rack spot, and that, I used to be tough back one time. Anyways, didn't work out well. This is one that's hard for people to understand, especially OYU rookies. I have 5 head to wash people. I'm not going to stand there with 5 head to go into the line after each one. I will wash one, and the wash rack runner will bring another one while returning the freshly cleaned animal back to begin the drying process. This process will continue until all our livestock is washed. You can have my stall when I'm completely finished. This is why it's vitally important for you to ask the current wash rack user how many head they have left to wash. All right? And please do not turn your hose on full blast without securely holding the end first. Let me also stress that a 25-foot hose is sufficient, so you do not need your 100-foot super hose that is kinked in 20 spots, and please do not bring your garden hose dolly that you borrowed from grandma's to the wash racks. Once turned on, please control your water spray radius. Keep the hose pointed at your animal at all times and pay close attention when doing the belly and leg area. This is when most wash rack friendly fire attacks take place. If you're a rookie at this, please warn surrounding wash rack mates that you are fixing to rinse so we can step back for a few minutes. We'd rather wait just a few minutes than get soaked in water. Once again, time is precious, so work efficiently but safely. He does that. It's kind of funny, but it actually is true. That is a ton of drama and ton of aspects happen from the wash rack, and I can only tell you that I even have like a timer. Way to go. I've got 5 minutes. I've literally been looking right here. I could have just been waiting on you. Thank you so much for that. ADHD, remember? All right, so that is a big thing. Now, show morning. I am the biggest person on making sure they are there stupid early. Why do I want them there stupid early? Because I want their morning to be the most stress-free morning possible, okay? Now, they say that doesn't make any sense because you're making me be at the barn at 3 a.m. You're correct, but the second all your work is done, you're asleep over there in the chair like you normally are anyways, so just go over there and get it done and make sure that happens, all right? So also make sure that you know the time frame of what's going on. I will say that an angry parent will blame it on you, even though you may not have anything to do with it. We'll blame it on you if a calf misses its class. It's always your fault no matter what. As educators, it's always going to be your fault no matter what. So having a good detailed plan, knowing who is at the ring, my favorite is to send the stress positive parent. Like usually, each parent, there's 2 types of parents, all right? You've got the easy, calm parent and then the stress-positive parent. So you could tell, obviously, in my relationship which one I would be. So I would be the one that probably got sent to the show ring to let the other part know so that we can, because the microphones in the barns, you're not going to be able to hear. So know exactly how long you think it's going to take you to get down there. Know exactly what class is actually in the ring at that time. That's got to be on you. And so whoever is fitting, whether it's your fitting, whether somebody else is fitting, make sure that they know also, look, hey guys, we got about the class before our calf is going in the ring. We got to go, all right? Because I would rather a calf go in there looking half fit than miss the entire class and look really good in the holding area as everybody else is walking out. And so that is just kind of that. Now, resources, guys, there's tons. If you're wanting to be the guy that does the fitting, the clipping, all the above, there's so many resources, videos out there. If you are wanting to be hands-on involved, I'm telling you, in the last 2 years, like, people have really stepped up, and there's tons of books, there's literature, there's all kinds of things. I'm not going to put anybody's product out there, but if you have any questions, message me, call me. I would always be happy to give any bit of advice that I possibly can. The biggest thing on cattle is just like any livestock species. It can be a lot of fun. It's a ton of work, but if managed and done correctly, a student can learn an absolute ton that they can continue on with. And so that's kind of up to you on how you do that. I was hoping for about 5 minutes left for questions, but well, that was 2 minutes, 3 minutes ago. So does anybody have any questions right before we're done? Okay, well, my phone number is 405-664-4495. Again, 405-664-4495. If you guys have a question, I'm not going to answer the first time you call, so leave a voicemail. I'm just saying I will not answer. I've been a telemarketer person that they've just been killing me. So I don't answer phone numbers that I don't recognize. But if you guys had a question, need help, need guidance, whatever, all right? I mean, there's people that I have that come down to Southwest Oklahoma, and I trim hooves and help clip. So whatever I needed to do in order to help you, I would be more than happy to do it. But there's tons of people out there that are more than willing to help you. You just got to be able to go find them. All right? Thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it.